What's going on, guys? I got to play Greyzone Warfare in the closed playtest, and in today's video I'm going to give you my exact thoughts on it, the good, the beautiful and the downright game breaking. Before I go any further, I'm going to prefix this by saying right here, right now, I've got a lot of love for this game and hold big hopes it will pull off to be a new lasting franchise entering the ring to slug it out with the big boys of the FPS shooters. Firstly, I need to say Greyzone Warfare is not, I repeat, not an extraction shooter. It's a tactical milsim with extraction elements within the gameplay loop. I see a lot of people calling this an extraction shooter, which is simply mislabeling it and has led to a lot of people thinking it's a Tarkov rival because they share elements. This game also shares elements with DayZ, but it's not being considered a survival game. It's accessible to most players, but peppered with these hardcore elements, although I'd argue it's nowhere near as punishing as either of them, as you won't be determining blood type or combating temperatures like in DayZ, or dealing with 800 different rounds and attachments like you would in Tarkov. You will still have to balance food and water and an in-depth medical system, but once you've healed yourself a few times, this becomes easy to remember and second nature. Firstly, I want to get into the positives of my experience of the game, starting off with the environment. Simply put, it is beautiful, from thick and dense forests with flowing streams and rivers to open plains and farmlands. The aesthetic that they're going for here is on point. Even on the lower graphical settings, the game does look good, although is very, very resource hungry, and I'll get to more on that later. Chopper rides show off the extent of the world they built here through 2 or 3 minute windows of travel, allowing you to take in the stunning world that they've created. And when you're on the chopper or you're running through the map, you really do feel like you could be a PMC tasked with finding that piece of intel or tracking down a high value target hidden in a stronghold somewhere in Lemang. Now I'm going to go on to the guns. The guns feel good, and they have a decent amount of attachments available as a level 1 player. They aren't surprised super high, so when those inevitable deaths do roll around and you cannot regain your gear, it's not overly difficult to get a basic loadout to get you back into the fray and fighting enemy forces. I did find the red dot almost invisible, so it's better to choose the EOTech sight, which has a circle and the dot as opposed to the standard solo dot. It helps with target acquisition a lot compared to that version. Shotguns are solid up close, and the SKS seems to drop tier 1 bots from a decent distance, although it is pretty deadly in a bot's hand as well. I often got one tap to the neck by an SKS wielding super bot. It wasn't fun. All in all, I think you'll find the guns fun to use but difficult to master when you decide to go into full auto mode. My recommendation would be to stay in single fire mode and tap fire, as the accuracy and ability to fire a follow-up shot increases massively. There are 2 other vendors at the level 1 that you will find selling medical supplies and clothing items, and they have a good variety available. Just be sure to go through them and check what fits best for you. Now onto the gameplay loop. After struggling initially to get to grips with the missions, from what I saw on a lot of streams, I wasn't alone in this one, I found the gameplay loop too fun and engaging. The early missions are quick paced for a game of this nature, and if you know what you're doing, you can easily cover the first 10 missions in a few hours if you can avoid those pointless deaths. I enjoyed exploring the initial village under the watch of my faction, but as a solo player I struggled to go much further in the week provided here, and as a result I would say it is doable as a solo, but will not be anywhere near as fun or as fast paced as dropping in with your buddies and going to town on the mission tree. I can see that people that like to play games faithful to real life situations or ex-service personnel will find the potential of playing this game as a true tactical shooter and getting lost for hours in the world as a really good pulling point for this particular game, and it's a good sign. I love DayZ, as anyone who watches my channel will know that, and I could play that game for 12 to 18 hours, probably more often than I'd like to admit, and if Greyzone can pull this sort of immersion off, then I don't see why it wouldn't last for another 10 years plus. Now, before I get into the negatives of my experience, I'm going to give you a quick second to smash that like button to help me grow this channel. We're struggling a little bit after changing from being a Call of Duty channel into a general gameplay channel, so please guys, if you can smash that like and help me get it out there, that would be massively appreciated. Now, on to my negatives. I'm going to have to start here with crashes, as it's been the biggest thing that I've seen throughout this playtest over YouTube streams that I've watched. And it was people getting crashed and booted, and mainly on Intel CPUs, but I can confirm that my AMD Ryzen 7 7800 3XD suffered with crashes as well. At one point I was locked into a crash loop until I rebooted my entire rig, and upon doing this it actually reverted the missions to before I had selected them, and it actually took away 2 quests from my mission tree that I'd selected, and they're permanently gone. I don't know where they went, as they were no longer on the list, and I'm not sure if my crash triggered a failure of mission objective, leading them to disappear, or if it was just a bug in the game. But this is again one of the problems with being part of an early access. And now on to resources, and my god, this game is resource hungry. I was playing on low settings and it still gobbled up a massive 16 gigabytes of physical RAM and 9.2 gigabytes of my 3080's available 10 gigabytes of VRAM. And the game still did not run smoothly. I was struggling to keep 60 FPS even on those settings. And I know, my 3080 is an aging workhorse, but really, full low settings and still using all these resources. There definitely needs to be optimization done from this perspective, as it will end up pricing people out of a good experience based on their GPU. The other issue we found was server stability, and it still needs a lot of work. I had mostly between 4 to 10 players, including myself, at any given point on my servers. They were nowhere near capacity. From my perspective, anyway, my team's perspective. We're still suffering from disconnects and full lobby crashes, but I guess this should be a given considering this was a gameplay and server test. One of the strangest bugs that actually occurred during my playthrough was the inability to use anything. So I'm mid-deployment, I'm on the way back to my forward operating base and approach the exfil, and all of a sudden I realise I cannot use anything. I cannot apply bandages, I cannot eat food, I cannot reload my weapon. When the exfil chopper comes in, I cannot access the exfil chopper. Now, if I was any further into the map, this would be round ending for the player. Luckily, I wasn't too far away from the FOB, and I managed to get back before I died of hunger and thirst. And as soon as I arrived back at the forward operating base, the bug was gone. Not such an issue in the early game, but I'm sure you can imagine once you're halfway across the map, this is going to become a huge issue. So hopefully they can find this bug and get to the bottom of it. One positive I can take away from these crashes is at one point I got DC'd, and when I infilled, it put me back exactly where I was mid-mission when I was expected to end up at the forward operating base with no loadout. Not sure if this is a genuine reconnect feature or a bug that was present during this playtest, but there is one positive from the crashes there. So, on to my final thoughts here, guys. Grey Zone Warfare has an opportunity to carve itself out amongst the big boys in the FPS space, but to do this, I would say they need to take at least another 6 to 12 months to iron out the creases and squash all the bugs that are in this build. If it was to release now, I think it would end up with some happy people, but a lot more people feeling let down by an indie dev with big ideas and no delivery. Not to say this game doesn't have delivery, it does, it's just not at a point to be released to the masses without being absolutely crucified. Don't get me wrong, this game is good, but released to the public good, not in its current state. I want this game to release, but I want it to release ready, because I do not want to see this fail. I started talking about this game way back in October before most of the content created had, and I've been in love with the idea of it since, and after my play sessions, my affection has only grown even more. Please do not destroy this game by pulling the trigger too early, Madfinger. Cook it slow, and release it when it's done, please. And there we have it, guys. That is my experience and my impressions of Grey Zone Warfare to this point. If you think I've missed anything that you want to know about, let me know in the comments section below, guys. If you didn't hit that like button, please smash the like button if you got this far. And hopefully I will see you guys out there soon. Much love, peace out, catch you on the next one.